pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Hurley?
Present.
Member Young?
Present.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Present.
Member Dashiell?
Present.
Chair Lowry?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, well, let's see. This is the meeting for August 1st, 2024. The first thing on the meeting is the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at it? And does anybody have anything they want to add?
No.
Okay, the only thing I would like to do is, as a discussion item, we can do this at the end, just real simple stuff. One is I'd like to see if we could talk about setting a date for the workshop. It's my understanding, at least last month, or not last month, in June, we talked about there would be a meeting maybe with Ms. Salmonari before the workshop. So I want to know kind of about that and how we might set that up or put that into, get the wheels turning on that one. The other thing I'd like to bring up is we also talked at the last meeting about the commercial zone in Paso Grill that's not in the overlay, and talking about putting it into the overlay with amended standards. And I think it was kind of left up with what we kind of thought how we'd follow up with that. And although I don't think that's necessarily a priority, you know, before we meet with the commission on some of this other stuff, I would like to perhaps talk about that at the next month meeting, or at least set something in the next couple of months so we just don't, you know, lose that. And the other thing I would like to, and I don't know if we'll get an answer today, but I'd like to put it on next month's agenda if possible, just to get an update on the garbage pickup situation in the historic district. So we can talk about that stuff later, or just put it on the next month's agenda. Okay, with that, then I will make a motion to approve the August 1st, 2024 agenda.
Second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Approved.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, at this part of the meeting, we do audience comments, which allows anybody to come up and say whatever they want in 3 minutes. If you're here, though, to make comments about something that's on the agenda for later, you can wait and talk about it then when it's more relevant. So this is kind of the area time frame for just kind of general comments. Does anybody in the audience have any general comments they'd like to make? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll go on from that. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Have the committee members had an opportunity to read the minutes, and does anybody have a motion?
I have a motion. I'd like to move that we approve the minutes from June 6, 2024.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Approved.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is on the regular meeting is item 4, our first action item, 4A, deals with the unnecessary and undue hardship variance, number 24040, reference to 3112 Paso Grill Way.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and board members. Kristen Coleman, Community Development Director. If I could have the PowerPoint, please. So today we're looking for a recommendation with regards to an unnecessary and undue hardship variance application we have. Case number 24040, applicant and owner Vivian Harold for Brandon Tecklenburg, located at 3112 Paso Grill Way. Staff is seeking a recommendation of approval with conditions or denial from the Historic Preservation Board to the Board of Adjustment regarding the reinstallation of a 34-inch by 52-inch sign on the front of 3112 Paso Grill Way, which is not zoned for such a sign type. In summary, the subject property is located within the RM residential district within the Paso Grill Overlay District. The property is also on the local historic registry as a historic resource. And the RM residential district or zoning imposes significant limitations on most commercial sign types. And the applicant is seeking to reinstall the projecting sign at the same size, same location, but with a different sign face. So with the LDC section 2814, the review of requests for variances. So some photos were provided from the applicant as part of the application submittal of the previous sign that was located. They are doing it in the same style as was previously there, as you can see from 2008, 2011. However, you'll see that this sign that was previously there was projecting out over the sidewalk. They have proposed to kind of nestle it under the eave, so it wouldn't be so far out there, I guess you could say. This is the schematic that was provided, saying what kind of copy would be on there, as well as the proposed location. You can see it's nestled. Staff has no concerns about the reinstallation of the sign with the new sign face. The sign is not excessively sized or out of character with the sign in place at time of the structure's placement on the local registry. Staff is recommending to the Board of Adjustment that the sign not now or in the future be permitted internal illumination, and that all other existing signs that were placed without permits, A-frames, the LED sign, things that are there, be removed as a condition of approval. So this application did go before the Technical Review Committee. Those recommendations were in place and the applicant did agree. So with that, we have our motion. Is there any questions that you'd have for me?
I would just for clarification, I guess, did they change the sign? I mean, how did they have the sign in the past but not now? Did they put it up at a time when they didn't really have the requirements, or?
So as far back as part of the application submittal, and perhaps the applicant can talk about this, that at the time when the building was placed as a historic nature, but the sign was not included that, it was just the building. So when, and you can probably attest, when driving by, that sign has been down for quite some time, years maybe.
Yep.
And I think it was secured, and after a period of time, if it's not put back up, if it's taken down temporarily, it can only be replaced or reinstalled in accordance with the Land Development Code, which we don't permit that kind of sign.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying, when the sign was initially put up, the Land Development Code probably didn't exist, or at least didn't deal with that sign.
More than likely not, correct.
Well,
Yeah.
that property is part of 2 non-conforming properties in all of Paso
Right.
that were able to operate in commercial and had signs, et cetera. Which brings me to a question. Do I need to recuse myself from this discussion because I am owner and operator of the other commercial property that is non-conforming?
Well, thank you for that question. Will you and Nara benefit privately, or will a family member and Nara benefit based on your vote today?
I don't know. I mean, I own the existing business and the existing signage at 26th Avenue and Paso Grove Way. And I, unfortunately, am partial to keeping our non-conforming businesses, the 2 that exist, keeping them here and keeping them in business. So I don't know if
Can you
that
make
puts
a
me in an
decision?
awkward position.
Can you make a decision based on what's presented to you today?
I believe so.
Yeah. Then I don't, unless you're a part of the ownership of this building or you're going to inure some kind of special benefit, then I think you are required to vote.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
I have a question as far as the signage looks like. The top tier of it says Tech Travel, and then underneath of it is Eva's Emporium.
Correct.
So what is this advertising, Eva's Emporium or Tech Travel, or?
There currently exists 2 businesses on site, and we do have BTRs or business tax receipts for both.
And are they doing the golf cart rentals also out of that location? Because I've seen golf carts kind of coming and going from there as well, the Paso Grove golf cart rental.
That would not be part of the approved use.
I have another question having to do with the non-conforming use of the buildings. I believe that in the past at that location, there had been a question because the business that was there originally, being the Nancy Marcoux Gallery and the gallery that was there prior to that, they were accepted. When the property changed hands and the business involved in that property, not just Tech Travel and Evers Emporium, but however, a group that owned it prior to that, were told by the city that if they were not maintaining the business in a format that matched the non-conforming use, that it could be an issue. Can anybody give me background or history on that?
So I can't give you specific background on the business itself, but legally, there are possibilities in which you can vacate a grandfathered use, right? So there are provisions in our code that say, for example, if you vacate it or you abandon it or you stop using it for a certain period of time, then you lose it. And we deal with it a lot with some of these transient lodging and short-term rental grandfathering requests.
That's why I was asking, because the Nancy Marcoux Gallery had closed for a significant period of time, and I don't know the length of time that it was closed and not reopened as a gallery. I don't know if that impacts, and I'm trying to find background on that, if anybody has any background on it. Under the impression that if you abandon the property, obviously you can lose your non-conforming status, or you abandon that use, you can lose that non-conforming status. But are they only allowed to operate if they have a gallery still, and then they can operate another business out of that if they have space for it? Or does anybody?
So there's two things here, right? So there's non-conforming uses such as non-conforming signs and building structures and things of that nature, right? But then with the use, and Kristen may be able to speak on this, is as long as the use that they're currently using it for is a permitted use in our code, then that's fine. Like, your concept would come around is if someone wanted to continue using it as a gallery and for some reason we changed our land development code to not allow galleries in that area anymore, that's how the grandfathered use would be continued.
That's not really what I was getting at. What I was getting at is that because there was a grandfathered situation with the non-conforming use or non-conforming business or commercial use of that property, does the business or the type of business need to maintain to keep it in that status, or can that business be changed so that the non-conforming commercial use of that structure can be used as a different business or a different style of business?
So I can say with this and looking through our history that we have, and it was before I came aboard to the city. So if there is a change of use and there's a change of business, they have to obtain a BTR, a business tax receipt. So at that time, staff would look to see whether or not the use is consistent, if it is a permitted use. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to issue the BTR or sign off from a zoning standpoint saying, yes, that use is permitted. So it's my understanding, looking backwards, that the BTR was issued for both of these businesses. So they were found to be consistent as far as commercial, whether it was office, like she had office, but it may not necessarily be that it had to maintain like an artist gallery. Could it be used for some like retail, whatever that kind of fell under, if that makes sense.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
If the businesses
Sure.
could change, for instance, if they no longer want to run a gallery there,
Right.
could they run the real estate or tech travel business that's there and operate any other kind of business on the same?
Yeah, we
structure? It
generally
would not
look
matter.
at the square footage, what is there. If we have floor plans, we try to take as much information as we can or knowledge that we have, as well as the land development code, to determine whether or not that use is permitted one in that zone. Is it consistent with the previous use if it's a non-conforming use? So that can be maintained but not enlarged or expanded. So we take into account those issues.
Thank you.
Member Hurley, so I did go back and look to see how long ago Nancy Marcoux Gallery closed, and I believe it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last that I could find any information on the gallery. So
Sounds about right.
I have concerns over if this were to be permitted, and let's say 6 months down the road, there's a choice of changing it to something else, golf cart rentals or whatever else. Would that signage then be, what would happen with it?
I think our role is to determine whether or not we would allow that size sign to be hung where they're proposing
Right.
to hang it and not get too much involved in the workings or the future of it. But I think from 2018, if that's when it closed, there was either a continuous use and operation or in different stages of renovation, reformation. There's always something going on there, whether or not the business was open and operating, they were working toward getting it open and operating.
I have a question. When we say, sorry, Holly, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. When we say non-conforming, are we saying because it's residential, it's zoned RM, but we're allowing a commercial establishment?
So there could be, depending on our land development code, there could be certain commercial uses that are permitted in any zone. And within the land development code, it would list those, what are permitted or conditional uses. If it's strictly residential, like an RU1, it's single-family residential only. But in those certain zones, if it is permitted, it would list that. If it is non-conforming where the commercial business isn't permitted, it can be kind of grandfathered in. It can remain to be standing, just can't be enlarged or expanded without further
Okay,
approval.
so that's my question. In this particular case, what does non-conforming mean?
Well, in this case that we're looking at today is the sign itself, so the sign structure.
Okay.
I'm not talking about uses, that's a whole separate thing.
What you were answering Mr. Hurley's
Correct.
question earlier in
Yep.
reference to. That's what I
So
thought.
in this case that I have before you today, it is actually the sign itself. So there are certain signs that we do permit within the RM zone. This type of sign, a hanging or projecting sign, is not considered a permitted sign.
Right,
So that,
but you've said that the engineers, whatever, have looked at it, and I know that a lot of times that these signs aren't allowed because in a hurricane they'll blow off and go through somebody's window or something. So I know there's different ways to engineer them and things of that nature. And I assume that was the reason why we don't allow those anymore, particularly. But, so in this case, the safety aspects, they pretty much rubber stamp that or said that's okay. The way the sign is designed, the city's okay with that.
as far as the technical review committee,
Right.
we do have representatives from building. There was no comments at that time. Whenever, should it get approved, and there's support found by you and from the Board of Adjustment,
Right.
the building department would review that, and if they had questions, comments, or concerns,
Right.
they would bring that up.
Because technically, all we're doing is making a recommendation to the Board of Adjustments, who really make the decision at that point. Okay.
That's correct.
So let me just say this, I am a fan of the historic district remaining as historic or potentially different than other areas of St. Pete Beach as it possibly can. I remember the Nancy Marco sign. I like the sign. I mean, I think that's a nice way to let people in the neighborhood know that there's something a little bit different there. I think that adds uniqueness. And then, not to comment on other people's property, I like to see other people's property that have signs out there as well. And I know we've actually designated some signs historically, or the Bon Air neon sign, I know we did. And so, as we go forward to talk about this, I think that although we got a lot of signage on Pass Grove, too many street signs or informational signs, I suppose, I think a sign involving a business like this that kind of lends itself to a more historic look, like that sign somewhat does, since we technically can't make those anymore. So that's just my comments, but,
Would you mind throwing back that slide that has the staff recommendations? And my question is, if, for whatever reason, we did not give a recommendation for this sign, what would be the alternative to that?
So yours is just strictly a recommendation. So when I do take this before the Board of Adjustment, I do touch upon any comments, any, recommendations you have and share that with the board, because it's within the Pass Girl overlay. We have been before you in the past where it was like you did recommend approval with these certain conditions. One thing we did say here is that there be no illumination permitted, whether internal, external, that it just doesn't, it's kind of out of character. Should you recommend it with conditions or some changes, you can. It would transfer over to the Board of Adjustment in my staff findings report. And they do take that into consideration, I want to say.
So, well, if you left the historic board out of this,
Yes.
and it just went to the Board of Adjustments, and they said, no, we're not going to approve this, what is the appropriate code today for this sign that would be put up, would be allowed? Would it be something on a pole?
They could have a certain monument sign. I will say, being on a corner piece of property where they are located, it's kind of hard when you have site visibility issues. They could have a wall sign, and that was kind of explored by staff, but as you know, there's a lot of window square footage, so it would have to be kind of low to the ground. So there are signs that are permitted. I can tell you that as far as size-wise goes, it is within the dimensions or the square footage that we do permit. They would have to come up with some alternative, but this is what the applicant is bringing forward. They could do a sign that's in conformance with the ordinance or apply for a different type of sign as well.
Okay.
I appreciate that they tucked it under the eave rather than projecting out over the sidewalk. I think that was a great consideration. If I'm not mistaken, one of these pictures shows that the rod that it's attached to can be easily removed in the event of a storm or wind, so that sign can be taken down in case the winds do kick up.
That's not the picture that's being shown is not that's the one that they're talking about that's up underneath the eave.
Right.
It is, it
Right.
will be removable in case of a storm. We don't want the sign to be damaged.
Yeah, I'm looking at one in our packet. It says page 16, I think, in our packet. 16 of 191.
Is that the old Nancy Marcoux sign?
No, it's not.
Okay,
It shows the tech travel sign under the eave
right.
on a rod with brackets there.
Member Hawkins?
And then the next page, you can see the little brackets too. And the little hole that's at the front where the rod slides in and out.
So I guess that would be in case we had a storm come in, they could take the
They could
sign
take it
down,
down.
right?
No,
Okay.
that's great.
Which is
thought.
one of the
Great
reasons why
design.
they're,
Better get out there this afternoon. Just kidding.
yeah.
Well, I will make a motion, unless any more discussion from anybody that wants to ask more questions.
Well, would you mind putting the staff recommendation slide back up, please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Or the recommendation.
Not that one, the one before,
Yes.
this one.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, what I would like to say, yeah, I think I know where we're going here. Yeah, I would make a recommendation that the reinstallation or the sign be approved as it is pictured and displayed. And I would also be agreeing with the recommendation of the Board of Adjustments that there not be any internal illumination and that other existing signs that were placed there without permits being removed. So my motion would be that as they've shown us with the removable pole and the size of the and shape of the sign under the eaves, that we would recommend to the Board of Adjustments that that be approved.
I second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Member Daschle?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll include that in with my staff findings report and presentation to the board.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, next, I believe we have the certificate of appropriateness on the demolition case number 24045 involving the property at 2311 Pasadena Way.
Thank you. Lynn Rossetti, contract planner for the City of St. Pete Beach. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of 2311 Pasadena Way, which is a single-family residential property, case number 24045. This particular property was built in 1936, and it is listed as a contributing property to the National Register District. In addition to that, it was locally designated on November 2nd, 1995, and was given a plaque at that same time. What they're requesting to do is to build a new single-family residents to the house large standards of the Pass Grill Overlay District. These are a listing of exhibits. This is a map that shows the location of the property on Pass Grill Drive and 24th Avenue. It is waterfront. Here's an aerial of the property. So this is how the house looks currently. I'll give you another perspective looking to the southeast. You can see the decorative ironwork on the gate and also on the balustrade and the front porch. This is the house that's to the north, and this is what is directly to the south. We have some additional photographs from the applicant. I've had conversations with the applicant regarding the property and its condition. The property apparently shows decay on the outside, especially with all the woodwork. So these slides are trying to show the specific rot and deterioration. You can see it along the roof line here especially, and also up the balcony. Some more outside wood decay. Rot and decay apparently is affecting most of the wooden doors. So we've been showing this. Also, apparently the plumbing and all of the house is not in usable condition. And this has waters coming through the roof when it's raining. So for demolition permits, contributing structures to the National Register of Historic Districts shall not be issued a demolition permit until a COA has been issued for such demolition. The board can ask for up to 30 days for either contributing structure or designated structures that have not taken advantage of any preservation incentives. And reviewing the certificate of appropriateness request and issuance of the demo permit, the Historic Preservation Board needs to consider the following criteria. One, that the historic or the architectural significance of the building, the importance of the building to the character of the district, the difficulty or impossibility of reproducing such a building, one of the last remaining examples of its kind in the neighborhood or city, whether reasonable measures can be taken to save the building, and whether the building is capable of earning reasonable economic return, and considering its physical condition and its location and the anticipated expense of rehabilitation, that would be economically feasible. And I'm actually going to go back on those points in a minute. Staff is recommending approval of the requested certificate of appropriateness for demolition case number 23045 for a deteriorating local landmark that is also a contributing residential structure to the Pass Grill National Register Historic District. This property is located at 2311 Pass Grill Way. Staff is recommending that any demolition approval be conditioned upon the Historic Preservation Board's approval of a related residential design review. There is a residential design review on the agenda today for your consideration. The Historic Preservation Board may pose up to a 90-day stay to discuss preservation incentives and demolition alternatives with the applicant. Actually, that should say 30 days. Thank you. The recommended motion is to approve the requested certificate of appropriateness for the demolition, case number 24045, of a residential structure at 2311 Pass Grill Way. I had several conversations with the applicant, who I think is here today. Yes, he is here today, Johnson, and I'm just going to convey what we talked about a little bit, and I'd like for him to speak further with you about this. I asked him because I feel that this building is a very unique building on Paso Grill, and it seems to be architecturally pretty significant. We don't have anything else on Paso Grill that looks like this building. But I asked him about how sound the structure was, and he explained to me that he has put in considerable amount of money trying to patch it up, fix it up, control the deterioration and rot, and it seems to be pervasive throughout the house. It gets water in it when it rains. He's concerned about flooding. He told me that water has come up to 2 inches within the front of the house, getting into the house. He also described how he had contacted a contractor who could possibly elevate the building, and because of the way it's constructed with its asymmetry, that it would have to be broken up into 3 pieces to be elevated, and it would never get back its original look, even elevated. So I'm not going, that's just what he had told me. But since he is here, I want him to come and answer any questions you have about that and speak to these issues that he's had trying to preserve his house, and he's come to the conclusion that he really can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, I guess that would be to Mr. Johansson or his agent to come speak to us briefly, I guess. Please state your name for the record.
Joy Douglas.
Okay, go ahead and tell us anything. I have some questions, but yes, I understand. Right.
Mr. Johansson and his wife have tried to live there. They have tried to fix things up. I have been in the property. I am a licensed architect, and I have examined the property and the house. Not only is it over the setback lines that are now established, it is extremely close to the seawall. I believe it's within 10 feet. It's very dangerous for floods, for their safety, or anybody that would be living in that home. There is no insulation in the house, so it's breaking every energy code that we have right now. And to fix these problems, raise the house as he explored, there is so much structural damage between termites and water that I believe on her slide number 6, is it cost effective to try to save this home? And in my personal opinion, in my professional opinion, the answer is no. While we do appreciate this architecture and do recognize how significant it is just too far. Someone previous to Mr. Johansson has let this go just too far, and there is no salvaging it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I don't know.
I don't think so. All right, thank you. Well, actually, stand there for a minute because maybe something will pop up. But no. But first of all, I'd like to thank the owners because I am a neighbor. I have seen what they've tried to do with the house. I know it was vacant for probably 5 or 6 years, and nobody was taking care of it at all. And it was an old house anyway. And
as you know, with a house that sits vacant with no AC for many years,
no,
what can grow inside?
Yeah, and so I applaud them for how they have fixed it up as much as they have to try to bring it back to some semblance of, being able to live in it. And I think we all know, just to say this, that we can't deny a demolition permit even if we wanted to. I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles. And it is a great house. It's got a lot of history and stuff, but I think not only is the code pragmatic, but I believe we have to be too. In the event, anybody have anything to comment or discuss before we do anything else?
I agree with the chairman. It's one of the most unique pieces of architecture in the area, but I don't know a way to save it based on what's been brought forward, what I've witnessed myself over the years. So again,
Maybe we could add a condition that you have to put a photograph of the old house in your living room. But okay, anyone else? Anything to say?
Does the owner want to speak?
I don't, do you want to speak, Mr. Johansson? I think everyone's,
Would there be any effort made to salvage any of the architectural pieces, maybe the gate or shutters or any of the decorative architectural items from the house?
The new home does not include any of the old features.
We have offered, we've been to the museum and offered if
Okay.
there's anything they could have interest in, specifically bathroom, which we think is very nice, but also so outdated that it can't be used, unfortunately. But yes, we will make anything available for people who would be interested.
Thank you for reaching out to the museum.
I have a question for the city, and we've talked about this before, about a photographic memory of the property. When we issue demolition permits, does anybody go out and take pictures of the way it was before it gets torn down? So we have and that goes into the file, so we always have a photographic record of
I think
what was there?
the COA, like Lynn presented, has pictures that are in a file, and I don't know, Lynn, if you can expand on that, but we do have photos of each.
yeah, and don't we have those old master files, whatever, that show the house when it was first
When
built
it was
and
first
stuff?
designated
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
I mean, I know.
when it's designated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, no, I'm even the ones, like those old yellowed files that show, sometimes I get these old photographs they took.
The old cards that would show the design and the dimensions and et cetera.
Yeah, there's, I don't know
Property
what they
cards,
call
I think they used to
them.
call them, property
Right.
cards.
This house was originally it was one of the original houses that was surveyed back in 1985. So we have that older Florida Master Site File form, as well as an updated Florida Master Site File form from 2015. We don't have photographs of the interior, but I do have some photographs now of the interior and the damage in the interior. But, it's a full photo essay has not been done on the house at this point.
I think before we make a motion, I have a couple of administrative changes or questions. So in the staff finding paragraph referencing the case number, it references case number 23045, and that should be 24045. And then regarding that case number, should the demolition COA case number precede the new design case number? Because in this way, it's reversed. This demolition case is 24045, and the design review case is 24044. Does it make a difference what order those things come in? Okay.
Usually we take them in the order that they are received. So the number gets assigned when the application comes in. That gets entered into this, the computer system.
So the design review case came in first, and then they were told they had to come in for demolition review.
Brandon's nodding yes. He took the case in.
I can hear his head rattling.
Can we make a motion that we table a vote on the demolition permit until after we've reviewed the build?
If you're asking
Can
me,
we just
I don't.
swap the orders?
I don't think we can.
No, I believe that we don't have any ability to change the demolition order
Right.
or request.
Although the agenda's been set, there's nothing wrong with shifting gears to the design review and then coming back to the previous item.
Well, we're all going to hear it all now anyway, but the only reason I was saying I wonder if there's an issue with it is even if the design review for some reason failed, they could still knock the house down and have a vacant lot.
Right.
So
Yeah, but you could.
You know what I'm saying? So
No, you could, but with the stay, you could. I mean, I know it's not as much authority as you want, but if you want a different design, then essentially you may motion to stay the demolition for 30 days until you get an updated design,
Right.
right? So just food for thought. You can't prevent it, but you can definitely pause it.
Well, I understand.
But I think the intent is really to try to salvage what's there, right? That's the
Correct.
intent of the stay.
If it was to happen, right. So on this motion for the demolition, even though we can't deny it, we could always at least add the 30-day stay in it, which as a practical matter happens almost anyway, so. Or we could table it and do the design review. I don't care. I mean, I think we're all, if you say we're okay to talk about the design review before I make a motion, I'd be happy to let that happen as chairperson.
If the board feels like that would help them decide on whether to issue the certificate right now or stay it, then I think that's absolutely in your privy to do.
I don't see the point in prolonging this. We don't have a choice in the demolition at the long and short of it. At the end of the day, we don't have a choice in the demolition. The design review will continue to have a choice in it as it comes before us.
Right. Yeah, I think as a matter of protocol, that would, I think that because the statute clearly says that we can't deny a demolition permit, and nor would I say in this particular case, because of the issues that exist, I believe it's appropriate under the circumstance. We can't make people live in a house that's fallen apart. But we could, so let me just go with this. I will make a motion to grant the certificate of appropriateness in the demolition case number 24045 with the condition that there be a 30-day stay. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, please, roll call.
Member Hurley?
Approve.
Member Young?
Approved.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Approve.
Member Daschle?
Approve.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so now we go to the next issue, which is all part and parcel of this. Brandon, can you tell us about, this is on the design review for the home that they plan on building there at that location after the demolition.
Yes. Brandon Berry, Senior Planner. So this is the accompanying design review for the Certificate of Appropriateness that you just heard. It is case number 24044. The applicant is requesting a design review of a new residence that is constructed to the house large standard of the Paso Grill Overlay District. This board tends to see house medium. There isn't much of a significant difference between the two. They tend to relate more to the location of accessory structures on the lot, which this property does not propose any at this time. The other difference is that the side setback is 7 feet, which is the more standard suburban setback that we have in our city, instead of 5 feet, which is the house medium. This is a site plan for the request. The lot and some of its neighbors are a little bit unique, not only in Paso Grill, but throughout the rest of the city in terms of residences, in that a significant portion of the lot is actually submerged land. The property has a depth of about 105 feet on average, but the rear 20 to 25 feet is submerged land. Per the zoning code, and this applies in Paso Grill as well as the rest of the city, the setback is always taken from the midpoint of the seawall, not from the property line, if the property line extends beyond the seawall. So despite having a depth of over 100 feet, the property only has a depth of about 80 feet once that submerged land is taken into account. But this is the proposal. The property generally meets the zoning code in terms of just the typical setbacks and lot coverage and green space requirements. I do have a few comments toward the end of the presentation about that, but I did want to note on the north side there is an ornamental wall that projects off the north side. You'll be able to see that better from the renderings. That does appear to be a little bit too far into the setback, so that will need to be scaled back in, but it otherwise does meet the house medium zoning code for setbacks. Here's a front elevation. This is the original. This is the one that went out with your packets. I did want to point out that we did speak with the architect last week. This was reviewed by our design consultant, Tara Salmieri. She had made one recommendation pertaining to the garage doors, and the architect did provide a revised rendering just to point out the changes. The balconies, there had been that, what is, I believe, aluminum wood look trellis that it projected out over the top balcony, the third floor balcony. That now is around all three sides. It extends out to the glass barrier. There is a vertical wood look feature on the center entry atrium type feature. And then there have been some changes to the garage doors. Previously they had been that wood look. Now they are white to meet the shell look of the ground floor. Here's the rear elevation. This is unchanged from your packet. There have not been any modifications. So looking to the north, this is a new design. I believe this actually came to the Historic Preservation Board back in 2020. This is the immediate northern neighbor. This structure is at its highest point a little bit shorter than the subject structure. The elevator shaft of the proposed structure at 2311 Paso Grill Way is 3 feet taller than the subject structure. However, the third and second story roof lines are below the structure to its north. It will be overall shorter, with the exception of that elevator shaft enclosure, than the neighbor to the north. Of course, to the south is the St. Pete Yacht Club. The immediate neighbor to 2311 Paso Grill Way up until 2018 was a more modest 2-story structure that was demolished. It's now a parking lot for the St. Pete Yacht Club. And looking at the nearby residences across the way, there's no direct neighbor. The direct neighbor is 23rd Avenue, but these are structures in the vicinity to the west of the subject structure. In summary, the design is notably modern. Staff cannot locate a residence of similar style in the vicinity. I'm certainly not a design expert. The architect can speak more to this. It appears to be a Bauhaus, more modern inspired structure. However, the residence was found by the city's consultant to generally meet the design standards. They are very broad design standards, at least as they are currently in the code. We are looking in the future to more of a style guide, more of a, matching the style of the neighborhood intent with the land development code. But as it stands currently, our consultant did find it to generally meet the design standards. The one exception was those garage doors that I pointed out before. Our consultant was okay with the texture of the garage doors, but they did want them to be the same color, the same type of the gray as the structure's vicinity. In terms of landscaping, the Land Development Code also prefers understory trees along the frontage, jatropha, holly, myrtles, rather than palms. And just going back to that, there were 2 palms proposed for the sides of the structure and one understory tree in the center. We do tend to prefer understory trees in the Paso Grill overlay. So staff recommends approval with 3 conditions. Again, going back to the garage doors, the applicant shall exchange the garage doors for ones with color and texture that match other nearby elements of the front facade that have been a recommendation of our design consultant. The applicant shall explore Florida-friendly understory trees, an alternative to the foxtail palms that are proposed on the north and south side of the structure, utilizing the palms only in cases where alternatives would pose issues with visibility or proposed construction. And as always, any significant alterations to the building, including exchange of materials, window location, or expansion of the structure under the current scope, would require the request to return to the Historic Preservation Board. And that would be a motion to recommend the design review case 24044 with staff conditions. As you saw, the architect is present. I'm sure they have a much better design backing than I do, but we had run this by our consultant, and they did make a recommendation for approval with that one exception. Did you have any questions for me, or would you like to hear from the applicant?
I have a couple questions for
Sure.
you, at least. This is, did you say it's a house medium or a house large?
It's a house large.
Okay, I think, okay. And I believe you said earlier that some of the setbacks they use are actually not as restrictive as they could be. Is that right? And they could go to 5 feet, but they're at 7 feet?
So the house medium, that tends to be the standard lot
That
size.
house medium again,
That's the standard lot size in Paso Grill, and that tends to be most of the reviews you see. The reason I brought that up is because it's a different setback standard than we typically present to the board. This might be the first one you've seen.
So this is a house large on what normally would be a house medium size lot. Is that what you said?
Not the lot meets the house large standards. It's more restrictive, and really the restriction is the setback is 2 feet greater on each side than it would be on a house medium. The house medium has a 5-foot side setback. This is of 7.
Oh, I gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's being built under the overlay. Could this exact same thing be built under the underlying zone?
The front setback would either need a variance or they would need to move the structure back to 20 feet. The rear setback does meet, the side setback meets for the underlying. However, the front setback does not. They would actually pick up another foot on the side if they were to use the underlying zoning.
And how many feet would they lose in the front if they did underline?
They would have a 20-foot setback. They are currently proposing at its closest point. I believe it's around 10. Let me get it is 10 feet on the south side and 13 feet 3/4 on the north.
Okay, and along that same, I remember we had a house in here, which is I think now under construction up there, like on about 28th, and then I forget the reason why, but they were like required to build under the overlay. And what was the reason for that? Just for clue me in again on that.
If the lot is undersized, it needs to build to the overlay. This lot does just meet the standard for an underlying zone, so they could choose to build to the underlying.
Okay, and just again out of curiosity, the submerged land, can they do anything with that? I mean, does it change the dock conditions or anything like that?
It may affect the dock conditions. I'm not sure offhand. We don't have any standards locally related to that. That's more with the state and the county. However, in terms of construction of the upland lot, it's only a greater restriction. Any submerged land doesn't count towards setbacks or lot coverage or anything like that. It's all
I guess I'm more thinking of whether they would be able to have a larger dock because they own the property under the water, but we don't have an answer.
Not under our zoning code. The setbacks would be the exact same.
And what is the setback? What is the rear setback now, if you know, compared to what the rear setback is of the existing structure?
I believe the architect said the rear setback is 10 feet, so they're an additional 10 feet from the seawall compared to where they are today.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Okay.
And what's the front setback on the adjacent property?
It's roughly between 10 and 15 feet. I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere in that range. They did build using the overlay, so I can look that up. I could get that.
Okay.
And I have a question. I just wanted to be clear, because I'm not right now. The proposed garage doors, were they the white ones or the brown ones?
I believe our consultant had asked for gray to match the rest of the structure, and they came back with, let me get to the, it appears to be white. I believe those are shadows, but the architect could speak to that.
So I'm still not, I know the staff is recommending that the garage doors be swapped out for something that matches the colors and textures of the other elements of the house. So is this what the staff recommends? Or is this what the applicant has originally submitted? And the wooden doors, wooden look doors, because there's other elements of this in the house, is that what the staff is recommending?
This is the revision that we received earlier this week. I did speak with our design consultant. She had asked that the garage doors, instead of this, be made a gray to match the sand stucco on adjacent sides of the garage. However, we had not recommended the wood look. That was the initial submittal. This is the revision we received this week. Okay. And she had asked for a further revision to this, to just on color.
Thank you.
I would have some questions of the architect, please. But again, state your name for the record, please.
Joy Douglas.
Hey, all right. here's what I have some questions about. And just for those folks out there that don't know how we operate, you know, we on the board here don't ever talk about anything other than us sitting in here right now. So, you know, when this information came out, it's not like everyone got together and talked. Being fairly perceptive, I think I have a feeling for some of the questions you might be getting, and so I want to ask about those now. When you designed this, and first off, I'd like to say I'm trying to be as tactful as possible because I think it's a pretty design, but it's a very modern house in a historic district. And of course, there's going to be a rub whenever that happens, okay? And we've gone basically from a unique old house to a unique modern house. And I feel, you know, these are my neighbors. I'm only a couple of houses away, and I don't know them that well, but I do like them, and so I'm kind of in a torn position here. But when you make a decision to build this under the overlay, do you read what the overlay says as far as purpose and intent, where it talks about fitting into the historic nature and being a compatible structure? Because I would say this clearly is not compatible and doesn't really fit into the historic neighborhood. Now, we're somewhat limited. Obviously, we don't have a lot of teeth in what we do. We get to do a design review where we can make suggestions. I mean, obviously, you've already done a lot of work on this already. And so, you know, for example, I had to say this not just because as a committee, I think we would like to know the thinking out there sometimes, because more and more recently, we've been getting more modern houses, which, you know, in my opinion, that's a fine house. It's a beautiful house as it's designed, but it's in a historic district. And, you know, north of the Don, that would look great, or wouldn't it, you know, whatever. So we have to kind of be in a position where we have a bit of a duty to ask questions about this stuff. And so when it talks about the overlay, it says the purpose and intent, and I won't go into all the detail because it mainly has to do with getting past FEMA and some of the setbacks that, in this particular case, obviously, you've taken advantage of gaining a 10-foot relief from the setback in the front. And so as far as you utilizing the skills to using the overlay so you can get the best house out of the circumstances, you've been given the ability to get 10 extra feet in the front. Yet the spirit, I would say, of the overlay is violated because it's not historic or it's not compatible. And so it makes me, I guess I'm questioning what thought process goes into designing this home when you're taking advantage of a historical overlay. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and maybe what your clients want to do this stuff. I understand that. I'm just trying to get a feel for, because you can see we have some dissonance about this. And
Sure. The reason for using the overlay, you're absolutely correct, was for the 10 feet in the front. While we maintained the 7-foot setback sides of the house large and the 20-foot of the rear, because so much of the property was in the water. This is not a large property, and we even discussed, does this even fall into house large because of the size and how much is actually buildable? And we felt that to get a house of any significant size, this is not a large house, it's not one of these 5,000 square foot houses out here, that taking advantage of the overlay for the 10 feet would benefit the size of the home. Otherwise, having a 20-foot setback in the back would reduce the house to being only maybe 20 feet deep on some set, and that's just for a waterfront property. Having a house that's only 20 feet deep is probably not so desirable for resale and building of the community. As far as the historic part of it, I don't know who, I don't want to say you, but there are examples in the area of more modern houses that are built. I don't know when those were approved, but we have quite a few examples here, I believe 5, with addresses of where these houses exist. To make a nod to the historic, we felt that the shell stucco on the ground level, which I'll answer the question about the white, the computer rendering, because I did this quickly, I wanted to show that there are 2 different color grays. The lower level is shell concrete, shell stucco, which a lot of these houses are using on the bottom level, on the ground level. So the computer rendered that in the sunlight more white than we had expected, but I wanted to get it back out to you, showing that we did want to change the garage doors to try to match that as best as possible. So that is a more smooth, not a wood texture, as the staff suggested that we change those. So we were trying to change that as quickly as possible to show that it was different from the other smooth plaster on the outside. But there would be 2 different shades of gray, that shell versus.
But matching or comparable?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Matching as best as possible. So with the wood features, with the trellis, with the shell, we were trying to use the materials to talk to the historic part, not necessarily the design of the home.
Well, I just need to say, so you mentioned 5 examples of new homes, and I can probably pick them out of my head, but I don't know if they were all built under the overlay or built under the underlying zone, okay? And there's a distinction, and I guess my question, and maybe there's no answer, and maybe I just have to, is why choose a modern style, period? I mean, I understand why you did it because of setbacks, and I understand the size of the lots. That all makes perfect sense why you would do the overlay, okay?
Yep.
But then the overlay also asks, that it be compatible with the neighborhood, and I think there's one line that says, the overall mass and scale of the Paso Grill community's existing housing stock. And even though there are 5 houses that might be considered modern, there's probably 150 that aren't. And we're very aware of homes. I could show you probably many more than 5 that are new builds that don't do a Bauhaus and again, I'm not an enemy of modern design. Okay, and I think this is a really neat looking house, so it's not that. I'm just saying, when the option is out there, and you're in a historic district, why do you want to build a modern house?
This is what the client asked for me to do.
Okay.
He came from Denmark, where modern architecture is more prevalent.
I actually know he lives in a 500-year-old house, but I get that, and that's okay. And
I was following his instructions, and actually some of his drawings that he brought from architects, and tried to adapt those as much as possible to fit this as best as I could.
Okay.
And also to that note, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Brandon said there's nothing else like this within the city, if I'm not mistaken.
No, but I would say that house on 14th or 15th is pretty close. That was recently built.
I would agree.
There's several of them.
But not identical to this.
No, I know, and I mean, and frankly,
Not in Paso Grill, at least.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think one of the neat things about Paso Grill over the years is there are a lot of different type styles, and some are more modern than others. But this is, really not, that compatible with the area around there. I mean, I know the house next to it is a little more modern. There's a parking lot next to it, these kind of things. And, I just wondered, like I said, because we get more and more of this. And if every house gets knocked down and gets modern, we won't have a historic district anymore. And the whole uniqueness and charm and reason why real estate prices are as high as they are is because I believe that exists. And so as we go forward, and just for what it's worth, we're going to be meeting with the commission, at some point to talk about doing some more design guidelines that might narrow some of these things down. But I'm just trying to get a feel for the thought process. So I appreciate your answers.
Personally, no affront to you. I question the reason for our time up here when I see designs like this come before the board. I'm like, what am I doing here? What is the reason why our historic board is here if we continue to see these designs come before us again and again and again, and there's really, truly nothing we can do about it. We can give our recommendation, but it's like a hole in the bottom of our bucket. It doesn't hold any weight whatsoever. And I just kind of have to bite my lip and say, that's pretty. Nothing I can do about it. And then I see my friends on the street who say, how could you let that happen to our historic neighborhood? I'm like, I can't do anything about it. Trust me. It's hours and hours and hours out of my life, too, that are spent up here wasted when these things keep coming before us and there's nothing we can do. I'm like, I think we need to really have a conversation about what's the point of being here if this just keeps happening. It's a beautiful home. I'm not gonna, it's lovely. I appreciate the design. I don't think it belongs in Pass the Grill. Personally, I like the brown doors better, but that's just my opinion.
I also like the brown doors better.
But I'm sure.
Well, see, well, then that's part of the thing, too.
But the
is-
brown doors are like the, little teeny tiny bit of what the problem is that we're facing here as a board and as a community. So, I mean, if we're gonna let this stuff happen, put the brown doors on it, who cares?
I agree, honestly. I mean, I prefer the brown doors anyway. And if it's gonna get built, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, and I agree with what Chair Lowry said as well as yourself. Part of the charm of our community is that it's unique and it's got character. And while this is a beautiful design, it certainly doesn't fit the overall feel of our community. It doesn't seem right. Just my personal 2 cents.
And I would just say this so you all understand a little bit too, this has been a evolving, I think, position in the committee is because, a lot of these houses that are very modern designs have all been very recent. And so we're kind of concerned about how that's moving, although as has been said, we don't really have a lot of enforcement. I mean, I suppose, you could always say, oh, well, this void needs to be more this, or you need more balconies here or there, but it's not going to change whether it's an architect design from 1940 as opposed from 2024. So that's why we don't really have. And I'm sure Tara, you met with Tara, I assume? Ms. Salmonari, did you meet with her?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, she reviewed it, but you may not
She made
have.
comments and reviewed it.
And I think we're all fairly appreciative of the work she does and understands the position and stuff.
We did ask about the house that's more or less across the street that was doing an addition and asked them to try and match massive scale or elements to try and soften it. That was at the 2500 block of Pass the Grill Way on the inside, so it'd be 2502 or something like that. They did a addition to the roof,
In the
and it
rear.
had very sharp edges like this particular design does.
Oh, on
Did it have a round window?
No, on Pass the Grill Way.
It's on Pass the Grill Way, but it's on the not water,
2502,
the west side.
which would be two doors down from the Hurley office.
The yellow one. Had a
It's
little-
blue.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how we got to the point that we were able to ask him to soften the edges on that.
Well, we
renovation.
just did, I remember that now you're talking about, and didn't really change it much.
No, it didn't. And again, like you said, we don't really have the ability to do that. The biggest thing is every neighbor that they showed had a huge boxy building on it, except for the roof line.
Right.
And the only difference is that while this one has a beautiful design, it has a very sharp, modernistic roof line.
Well, yeah, I would say, for what it's worth, that this design does break up the roof very nicely, and the trellises are super great, and the way you've boxed the windows, I think that's all, helps, as far as that's concerned. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think there's much we can do about it, number one, but number two, as far as modern designs go, it's a nice one, and that could have been, much worse, if that sounds.
I'm in agreement with that.
That sounds harsh. That's just kind of what we're doing here, so.
our new benchmark. It could have been worse.
Well, I mean, we have other examples that probably are, so, I say that with, some understanding.
So Chair Lowry, can I just say something for a minute?
Sure.
Because obviously we've been working on a lot of initiatives and design review books and things that are going to be talked about later this meeting. But I've heard you say, all of you say a lot that you can't really do anything. And it's not always true, because you can ask. I mean, just because you can't enforce or require something doesn't mean that you can't ask for something and see if the property owner is willing to do it.
No,
Right, but on a design like this, like, where do you start?
Trust me, I'm not an architect, nor do I pretend to be, so I don't know. But if you like the garage doors wood, then say it, right? Or if you want, I mean, maybe we need to start having Tara or someone here as a resource for you to ask questions on. But I don't want you to lose the ability that this is in front of you right now, and you could potentially ask for certain things if you thought it would make it more compatible.
Well,
Do you guys have a licensed architect on your board or as a consultant for these types of things? Just total side note.
We don't have one on our board, but we do have a consultant on
Yeah,
staff.
we have a consultant on staff
And they're
who
like-
actually reviewed this, and I think that was where the change for
Okay,
the garage came.
okay,
Because we've had a lot of houses built to the overlay that weren't actually built to the overlay.
okay.
well, here's where a lot of problem in the way this whole thing operates is, the way this is set up is, and this may not be the case in this particular case, but somebody buys property on Pass Grill. They may or may not know it's a historic district. They may or may not hire an architect that knows it's a historic district. We don't have any way of usually of getting with the people before they spend money to do a design and do things of that nature to work with the city. Usually, I mean, I'm saying, I don't know about in this particular case, but this is what they want to do. And, frankly, I feel bad, even as much as I love the neighborhood, but I would feel bad telling my neighbors, hey, you wasted your money on this design, go do something else. Especially one that like this, which isn't a matter of just softening some corners, it's a whole different style of architecture. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I appreciate the fact that they like that style of architecture, and I appreciate the fact that they, I believe in reality, can build it here, that our design guidelines can't stop that. And I hate to put them in a position to say, hey, go back to the drawing board when I don't have any, bite to my bark. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
In this particular case.
I do. And with the work that we've done and all the research that we've done on this meeting, I mean, this board used to be a design review board by nature.
Right.
And because it's not anymore, there's statutes that don't allow the city to require architects to sign off on single-family homes. Now, they've hired one in this situation, but, there's other laws at play that we have to abide by that we're preempted for. So if we were a design review board, there's probably more that we could do, but, we converted to a historic preservation board 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
While I don't want to shoot myself in the foot at all, I have sat on boards before, and I would say it's the language in the statute that allows for other types of structures than what you guys are looking for. And I would say, to your concern, they probably will keep coming
Oh,
until this language is changed.
well, I appreciate that. It's very honest. You
Sorry.
And for months, years probably, we've been working towards changing a few things, even though we can't do a whole lot of stuff. But one of the things we want to do is attach a design guidebook that with photographs that would give people at least a little more information from the beginning, maybe on some issues or some future builds, and that might give us a little more juice. At least there's more notice out there, perhaps. But yeah, no, I appreciate what you just said.
I think too, it's a stark contrast. So if you look at the house that's there presently, and take into account the history behind it. And I think for all of us that are emotionally, obviously married to that history part of it, and the memories of seeing it, you know, umpteen times, and for me living here my entire life. So you look at that, and then again, your design is beautiful. So not to take anything away from it, but you go from apples to oranges, and it's a night and day difference. And so I think that's a tough pill to swallow, is when you go from one thing to a totally different entity. It makes it hard. And I just wish maybe if there would be a way to make it where it kind of at least resembled or featured some of the old elements. So maybe if those iron features were able to be utilized in the new build, or if just a nod, like a small nod to what was there previous to what's there now, I think maybe would make it not so hard for the community to wrap their arms around, and I'm speaking just for people that I know in the community, of course. Just again, my 2 cents.
Well, I mean, does anybody, I think, I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself, I think we're aware of, or Matthew, let me ask you this, if I can. Let's say, and I'm not saying this is going to happen in this particular issue, if we voted to reject the design review, what's the next step?
That's just our recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just a recommendation.
It takes the next step anyway.
Correct.
And
Right.
the staff can they can decide to approve it.
Unfortunately, legally, I don't think it does anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
It makes a statement.
No, well, I understand that, but, you know, I mean, there's also a aspect of it.
I know it feels like a lot. I mean, I feel the energy. I think it's going to be a lot easier, and I know we've been saying this for a while, but just generally speaking, when we all are going to have an opportunity to look at something and says, you know, it meets these pictures or it doesn't, because none of us are architects. So until that moment, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that when we have our workshop in a couple months, which maybe we're going to talk about with the commissioners, that we accumulate some of this recent information and the recent builds, and so they have a basic idea of you know what's happening. Like I said, remember I said the other day, I said everything's max plus now. You know, there's a vacant lot and they already want a variance before they built the house, you know, kind of thing. And that's just the way it's going to be with the property values. It's all going to be like that. So, you know, as you said, we're going to get more and more. I'm sure we will. Although, you know, there are people that build brand new houses that maintain a historic look. I mean, it can be done. And of course, that's what we're here for, is to encourage that to be done, but all we can do is encourage. We can't demand anything. So, all right, well, with that, does anybody else have any comments? Go ahead. Sorry.
Just to clarify, because there is some staff conditions that I think are going to be imposed if you do move to approve the design review.
We could put the brown doors back in.
Sure. I don't see any issue with that.
That would be great.
I mean, you know, you could. I mean,
Does that brown mean real? Does it brown mean real? Does that mean real wood? Or I don't know.
No, it's an
Yeah.
impact insulated door, so it's going to be
Faux wood?
finished wood.
Yeah.
The closest for, I mean, it's going to be as, you know,
Yeah. And the house next door has wood
correct.
look.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's another example.
Well, do one of you ladies who like wood doors want to make a motion? I like them too. I'm just joking, but I'm trying to find where we are here.
Page 70 is what you're looking for?
I'm trying to find.
The staff recommends?
Yes.
It's page 70.
Thank you, Holly.
How about, I'll make a motion to approve review of design review case 24044 with 2 of the 3 requested staff conditions, eliminating the condition of changing the color of the garage doors. How's that?
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Young? Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Daschle?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let me
We're going to get a lot less grief for approving that little sign than we are for this.
Man. Okay, so let me scroll down to what's next here. Let's see.
It's the theater, right?
I think so.
That's why we're here.
The
Yes.
theater.
That's
This is a request
I know.
for a certificate of appropriateness for the Beach Theater, a local historic landmark. Len, take it away.
Thank you very much. Get this slideshow going. Okay. This is for certificate of appropriateness for 315 Corey Avenue, which is the Beach Theater. If you'll recall, last June, you went ahead and locally landmarked the Beach Theater. And a lot of people were happy about that. And so right now, the project changed owners. The original owner sold to the new owners a little while ago, and these folks have already started on interior renovations. But right now, they are looking for a certificate of appropriateness for the exterior. This is to be a replacement of the window wall system that was installed at the front entry in 1970 and is now in poor condition. So they are going to be rebuilding that. They are asking to use all of the existing signage, however. Okay, we all know that it's on Corey Avenue, 315 Corey Avenue. And this is the aerial photograph of it. Another closer look at the aerial. This was the original drawing from Mr. Winfield Lott's 1939 design for the Beach Theater. And so just to kind of show you, this is what the Beach Theater has looked like on and off throughout the years. You'll notice, let me go back a second. You'll notice in that picture, there are only 3 signs. Here there are 5 signs. And this is important because one of the things that they are asking for, not from this board per se, but it's going to have to go to the Board of Adjustment. They have the signs that say Beach Theater that are illuminated. Those are in storage right now. And they want to replace those signs back up on the walls as they have been historically. They also want to illuminate these signs. That's going to require an amendment, or a variance from the Board of Adjustment, because only 3 signs can be illuminated on the front exterior. And they want to be able to illuminate all 5 of them as has been historically been done.
Like that picture right there.
Like that picture right there, exactly. And, you know, non-illuminated, but, you know, they're still there, and you can see them.
Although, go back.
Actually, there are...
We've gone from...
You've got 6, 7, 8, 9,
you
and
got
before that
6
was...
playbills, and the other one you had 4, and then you have 2.
We're talking about 2 playbills, 2 marquee signs, and the theater sign.
Do we know what year this photograph was taken?
This...
Well, that one there, Brandon's standing in front of it.
Now, Brandon has been in a lot of my photos, but not this one.
That's an inside joke.
But that picture is much different. It shows a
Brandon
ticket
for
office in the
scale.
front and et cetera. It
The
shows
photos-
a ticket office out front
when I
and
was,
etc. that doesn't exist.
When I was looking, finding photographs for this presentation and for last year's presentation, most of the photographs were not dated.
Yeah, that's an old one. That says
If we could-
CinemaScope there and everything.
If we could figure out what the movie is, we might be able to
Looking at,
put a year.
It's a little difficult to
It's
read.
Yeah.
For Love or
Yeah.
Money, that's what the movie is.
Can you give us the date on that one?
Wheel of Fortune.
Oh,
Very good.
Wow. Can't you see that?
Yes.
eyesight. No, now I can.
So moving forward, out of Africa, that was,
That's more
I
recent.
don't remember exactly. I have seen it several times over the years with Katharine Hepburn, of course.
No, Meryl Streep, sorry.
Meryl Streep, yeah.
And again, the signs are there.
That's 1985 out of Africa.
So basically,
For love or money.
this is a COA to complete the facade improvements, to actually take it back to the way it looked here. Where you've
For the
got-
signs,
For the
right?
signage.
Yeah.
For the
But
signage.
we're only here today about those doors in the middle, pretty much, right?
The doors in the middle, well, no, it's going to include the signs.
Oh, I thought we were,
Yeah, illuminating 5 signs rather than the 4.
no, I get that, but are we here also to make a recommendation on the signs?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes. I found out after I sent you the staff report that the signs were also to be included.
Okay.
And you're not approving the signs. It's going to have, well, you can approve the signs, but you cannot approve the illumination of 5.
Right, we can only make
That's going to go to
recommendations.
VOA with your recommendation if you recommend it.
Let me ask you a question, Lynn, just before we get on next. Can they, only because I know we did it with the Bon Air, can they get those signs historically approved? I'm sure the
They could.
the vertical beach would be, but
Yes, they
those
could.
other ones may not be, but they have to be 50 years old? I don't know if they're that old. Well, 1970 is over 50 years, isn't it?
They certainly could.
Okay.
If this was 1993, was that Michael France
So
in the
again,
picture maybe?
going back through, here we go.
I don't think he did that movie.
So, the criteria for issuance of the
I
COA
mean in the picture.
needs to meet the Secretary of Interior Standards, which these do. The property needs to shall be used for its historic purpose, or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change. Well, it's going to, it's in its historic use. The applicant is going to be showing, I understand, movies as well as live entertainment, and it's going to be used as a theater. The historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. We believe that that is happening, and it needs to be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. It's not creating any sort of false sense of historical development because it is being restored pretty much back to where it was. Most properties change over time. This property certainly has. At this point, it's going back to pretty much what it's been historically. The only new additions are going to be the re-addition of the 2 signs for a total of 5 signs in the front. There's no variance from the floodplain regulations. The building official reviewed their plans and their estimate of cost and came to the conclusion that it was not triggering any need for a FEMA variance. And the staff finds that the proposed certificate of appropriateness to be consistent with the City of St. Pete Beach Land Development Code. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed certificate of appropriateness for case number 24050 for the Beach Theater located at 315 Corey Avenue. So staff is recommending approval for 24050 for COA to replace the Beach Theater's front window wall system that was installed in 1970 and is now in poor condition. In addition, we need to have one more recommended motion that the Historic Preservation Board recommends approval that the 5 signs that will be located after this window wall system has been installed, that those 5 signs be allowed to be illuminated, because at this point only 3 could be illuminated. Unless you have any questions, I am finished with my presentation.
Yeah, no, I do a little bit, only because I couldn't see anything. I know there's the initial drawing from like 1939 or whatever, where you can kind of get an idea what those doors looked like, but not really. And then I've seen all the pictures of what they looked like since 1970. And then there's some information in there that shows some doors, but then it's like they're actually going to be
A little more Art Deco.
yeah, more. Does anybody have any information? I mean, see what
The
the
applicant
doors actually
may.
look like? And are there only 2 doors in the middle? And so we've plastered into those 2 doors. Is that? I see that the head's nodding back there.
I think that the applicant can come up and,
Yeah, do you wanna
answer those questions.
Please, that'd be great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Lynn.
Will you just please state your name for the record, please?
Sure, I'm Britt Hayes. I'm with Boziak Hayes Architects. So we presented or assembled this application and the plans that were submitted. The intent is not to replace the window wall with another window wall, which is
Yeah.
not true to the original era. We did go back and reference the original photographs that showed 2 pairs of doors, original drawings, and there is that one image, which is actually a great
Yeah, but-
example to see.
I couldn't really make anything out on it, though. That's why I'm just.
We don't know the
solid.
We don't know the detailing,
Yeah.
but we're proposing 2 solid doors. They need to be impact rated for today's standards. We'd like to do a small light, and our I don't know if it was included in your report. I hope so, but we did do a drawing of the.
I don't recall seeing that.
outside of
That's
the
why.
building.
That's why I was a little concerned. I didn't know because I am highly interested, and I would like to see. I assume you're trying to replicate. Yes, there is a drawing here.
Yeah, there's an elevation that shows the
And it
doors and
shows
the
two-
signage and
There's the
everything.
doors, and we're doing 2 glass lights. The lobby itself, we don't want to let too much light into, and from the original drawing, it didn't appear that there was glass on those. We do want a little bit of glass, but not too much, because the function inside is going to be, needs to have less light.
Yeah.
In that space that is kind of serves also as a light lock to the theater. So you don't want that entry lobby to be too illuminated. So we did submit the finish of those doors. It is a high quality wood simulated look, like a dark walnut. I have samples here if you guys like to see it. But the intent is there's no reference for us to understand precisely what the historical original doors were, but we know we're getting much closer to the original intent than the window wall that was there, which is much more referential to, kind of a movie theater, much a later era type of entry.
And this one, I'm looking at page 99 of 191. I don't know if we can get it up on the screen or not, but you're also proposing to change some of the rear entrance doors or exit doors as well, or no?
They, as long as they're in working order, no. They'll just be.
Okay, that's fine.
They'll be painted.
They were just on this. I didn't know if that was a change or not.
They'll be, as long as there's no issues with their function, they'd be replaced in kind, but they're just blank doors right now for egress purposes.
Wish I could do it that fast at home.
While he's looking this up, is there a timeline for when how late the lights can be on for the illuminated signs, or can they be illuminated 24/7?
If I may, Kristen Coleman, Community Development Director.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify that is going to the Board of Adjustment, that it is, 1, the number of signs where 5 is proposed, 3 is permitted. The illumination is not permitted. So just to clarify, they would be requesting not number of signs, but also to have all of them illuminated.
Right.
So if there is a recommendation from this board as far as time frame, that would be great to bring forward, because currently no signs are permitted to be illuminated. So we don't have a time frame for that.
And
Sure.
I have a question about the large marquee signs that are hanging up. Do we know when those were added? What year? And I think that's an important distinction. If they were added, say, maybe in 1980, that's a lot different than if they were added in 1940. You know, what is the historical significance of those those overly large marquee signs?
Okay. I don't disagree. I don't know the answer.
It was not on the original, in the 1930
Drawing. from the
rendition, they
law.
were.
I didn't
Okay.
notice.
And those of you who grew up here, who went to, do you remember
I remember the
when
signs
those-
being there forever.
Yeah, I do too.
the big marquee signs as well as the playbills along them?
Yes.
If,
Sure.
is that okay? to
Yeah,
have the-
yeah, yeah, please, thank you so much. Please state your name for the record, though.
Hi, I'm Hannah Hockman. And yes, as far as we've been able to tell, those signs were original to the property. There were some added, we believe, in the 60s. At one point, there were 11 signs that were all illuminated. But yes, those were original, as far as we can tell.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any more questions? Any more questions? Oh, I guess the two, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, yeah. But this is the design of the doors we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
And so they're just a flat panel door, not a lot of decorative detailing except for a really nice wood look paint finish, which is not easy to find, but we found something will look high quality for this. Yeah.
And just for curiosity, you're going to leave it the same blue and white as it is now?
That is the plan, although a lot of the earlier views showed in white. It's been blue for so long.
I was going to say, and the blue seems to be built on a raised like an Art Deco raised.
There are different kind of levels to the stucco, so
Right.
it kind of works with that. It does look, looking at the history of the photos, going all the way back, at some point it was mostly white, but at least for probably 40 years or more, it's been blue and white. So.
Yeah, there was a rumor around Barbie Week that it was going to be pink. I did. I didn't fall for it.
I left this office and walked down there to see if it was true.
Those of you who grew up here, was the blue and white always the iconic colors? That's what you remember from your
As far as
childhood?
I remember, yeah.
That's all I remember.
That's all I remember too.
And always having the Art Deco type look to it.
Yeah.
Do you remember a ticket booth being out front?
Yes.
Very early on, yes.
Okay. And then afterwards, tickets were you bought inside?
And also interestingly, the glass system, right, has the kind of like ticket booth.
Slots in it, or?
Yeah, so you can see it's much later in terms of technology. But
And I like that you did the door with that, the semicircle. So, and the doors will have kind of that Art Deco vibe as well. So, you know, the attention to detail.
it's going to be more so apparent once you're able to see the interior, because we obviously have a lot more liberty there, but it's going to have all Art Deco attributes to it.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let me see here. I guess we have, I got to get back to my beginning.
Motion to approve the certificate.
Yeah, you want to,
Here, do you want that? And then I added the language for the signage too.
you want to do it? Okay. Right, well, so I would make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for this locally designated historic property, the Beach Theater on Corey Avenue, to be able to replace the window wall system with the one described in the application and the staff report. Is That's my first motion. Can I get a second on that?
With the 5 allowing for.
But that's actually a recommendation to the Board of Adjustments, isn't it? Is the illumination part of the certificate of appropriateness? Oh, it is, okay, all right. As well as to approve of the 5 signs and they're allowing to be illuminated.
I would second that.
Matthew, what?
Madam Clerk?
It's actually separate.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to see how this worked out.
It's a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment, which has the,
On the signs?
on the illumination.
Yes.
So
Okay.
you're granting a certificate of appropriateness.
For the doors, a
Yes.
motion for the certificate of appropriateness to be granted. Do we have a number for the certificate of appropriateness?
24050.
Yes.
What a mess.
COA is 24050.
Yeah, so motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness on case number 24050, allowing the replacement of the wall window system, or window wall system with the described doors in the application and the staff report.
I would second.
Madam Clerk?
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith,
Approve.
Member Daschle,
Yes.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Chair Lowry,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, secondly, I would like to recommend to the Board of Adjustment the variance request, which is the approval of the 5 signs and allowing them to be illuminated.
I second that.
Madam Clerk?
Member Daschle,
Yes.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith,
Yes.
Chair Lowry,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually,
I
Chair
think,
Lowry,
I
you
think
can
I
do it
can
one
speak
more
for us all
do it
to
again.
say we're very excited with what you're
We'll
doing.
pick which one we like best.
Thank you.
Yes, go Beach Theater.
It makes me want
Yes.
to cry. Like,
Finally.
it's so incredible.
Yeah. And I love all of your videos, Hannah. They're really fun. Thank you. I share them around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, I believe, if I'm doing this correctly,
Ongoing, like an estate case forever. 12 years, since I started.
Yeah, I know.
Like the
I think he's
nastiest.
actually in the picture, the one that has
We're so happy we're making progress.
the movie that I could read. I think that's actually Michael France in that picture.
Really?
Literally makes me want to cry. And to see that.
I have tissues.
I know. I'm telling you. Well, there's a whole box right here. I guess they knew it was going to happen.
I knew. I knew. Oh, boy.
I'm not a crier, so what's going on? I don't know.
Ugh, wait till you get menopause.
God.
okay, so we're on
That's on
to,
record. Thank you, Jennifer.
Something to look forward to.
Just taking a turn.
Oh,
Sorry.
133. Page 133
Okay,
is
thank
what you're
you.
looking for.
Yes, let me see where I'm at here.
You want this one?
Yeah, no, all right, I'm there. Oh my gosh.
It's the Gennaro's.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the change in the elevation of the Gennaro's.
I have it printed out. Do you want it?
No, I'm gonna come to it here. I don't mean to be, I've gotta get to it anyway. Okay,
I go back and forth with this so much.
so this is dealing for discussion purposes for the facade alteration at 2004 Pasagrille Way, which formerly contained Gennaro's and the Leaping Llama Cafe. Brandon?
So we have the architect here who can speak to the design. This one's a little bit different from most of the design reviews you see because it's really just we just wanted to get your input through the resolution that we passed last year. This is the ROR PAG district. It is a commercial district, and they are permitted to have this type of use there. There's no use incompatibility. Of course, it was formerly Gennaro's and Leaping Llama. I believe Molly Moo's is an ice cream store, but they can confirm. They are proposing to change the facade of the structure. We do have general commercial design standards, however, those apply to new buildings, not necessarily to renovations. In terms of the overall commercial design standards, they do meet some of them. It's not up to the caliber of what we would expect with a new commercial build in the Pasagrille overlay, as few of those properties as we have. But we just wanted to bring this to you. If you want to get any suggestion, like I said, or wanted to provide any suggestions, like I said, the architect is here.
Okay, well, perhaps I'm looking at, page, where they have I'm looking at it right here, you got it up already. So if the architect would come forward, we may have a few questions, but I'd like him to describe what we're looking at here. Please state your name for the record.
Sean Barber with MPAD Architecture.
Okay, so are these two separate designs for the buildings? I mean,
Front and side view.
This is the front and side elevations,
Gotcha.
correct? The one on the right, if you're looking at the screen, on the right side of the screen is the Paso Grill Way, what would be the front elevation.
right. And is this still going to be two businesses there?
Correct. So it will remain as 3 tenants. The tenant on the far left will be Molly Moo's, which is an ice cream shop. The center tenant, they don't have a tenant lined up for that, so that would just be, I'll say, a vanilla box at this point. And then to the right is the Leaping Llama Cafe, which would remain.
Okay, all right. So Gennaro's, which is now, well, the last place was both those spots.
Correct. So where you're seeing, I'll say, the gray beechwood type of a look, that is where those 2 bays is where the old Gennaro's was.
Right, and is that, just curious, is that being designed as 2 separate stores, though?
It is.
So there'll be
It is being split. There's a new demising wall that'll be in place.
And Molly Moo's will be in one of those, or both? I assume just one of them, right? We don't.
Correct. Molly Moo's will be on the left side,
Okay.
the end cap tenant.
Okay.
Since we've been talking about signage so much today, what's the concept for signage on this?
So I'm leaving that to, I'll say, the owner and the signage vendor. Obviously, we have to adhere to, code. So being the architect for the building, I'm not going to speak to the signage on it.
Okay, and also, as we look at the picture on the right where where the Leaping Llama was, is that where the gray changes to white, is that slightly recessed there?
It is. So there's a slight relief that's there. So where there's currently, you can kind of see where I'll say the red brick is currently on Gennaro's. Part of that'll be, I'll say, a whitewashed thin brick, kind of keeping that brick motif throughout the facade.
Yeah.
And then there's probably a relief of about 6 to 8 inches,
Right.
where that, I'll say, that beech wood will become a more prominent facade element.
And notice a cover over the Leaping Llama section. Will that continue throughout the section with the wood finish on it?
It will. So both the Leaping Llama and the 2 tenants to the left of that will have that same black overhang. We have the differentiating mark as the Leaping Llama has the tiebacks on that side to that white brick facade, whereas the other is just a straight cantilever out from I'll say, the beechwood.
And do you know when this building was originally built?
I don't. I'll say I know it's been Gennaro's for a really long time. I remember going there as a high school student getting like subs and stuff. So it's been there for a while.
It was in a way. I don't know.
It was there prior to the
the
breezeway. The breezeway was built and attached to it. So it's been there since late 50s, probably, maybe early 60s.
I'm gonna guess.
It's
Based on the
mid-century vibes.
I'll say based on the construction type, it's block shell with wood frame, and they use the actual 1x12s for the decking on the roof, which is that's a mid to late 50s
Okay.
kind of trademark.
Okay. Do you have any questions? I mean, personally, I think anything looks.
The windows on the side will be in addition. There's nothing there at this point, so those have to be added.
Correct. We're adding new clear story windows just to get some more light into that side.
And they'll be building a parapet wall that'll match your beechwood wall above the remainder of the structure where Leaping Llama is?
Correct. So the existing facade doesn't have that height to it. We're extending up just a little bit from what's there. The beechwood will be on the Molly Moo's, and I'll say that vacant tenant space, and it'll just turn the corner and go around, I'll say, that alleyway side. And then where Leaping Llama is, they'll have that white thin brick facade that you're seeing there.
And you said it was a projection of a foot or less, or 6 inches or so? The beechwood.
Correct.
And you don't have a rear view, right?
No, nothing on the rears to change at all.
No, it shouldn't. Nothing should change. I mean, not even the exterior or anything like that. I don't care. All right.
I'm sorry.
Maybe you ought to turn it off.
I actually love that song. I have to. I'm kind of sad that you're ending it. It's on my.
So the rear will stay the same, which that's
Yeah,
fine.
no change to the rear other than paint.
And really,
You know,
and I don't
paint
like,
patch repair kind of a thing.
and I'm not really concerned what you do with the interior, except for you are dividing Gennaro's, that space into two shops, which is interesting. Okay, good.
That's what it was originally.
I know, but I'm saying, yeah. Used to be the laundromat.
No, laundromat was Leaping Lumber.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
There was always two-story. Gennaro's actually was, it was one stall pizza parlor, then it was expanded to 2 stalls, then Gennaro's took it over, it went back to 1 stall. Then as the family changed, they opened it up to 2 stalls again.
Well, what was next to Gennaro's between Gennaro's and the laundromat?
For the longest
Was it
time. I don't-
Hairstylist?
Yes, it was.
I used to go there.
So to answer Holly's question, it was built in 1968.
Okay,
Really?
it's later than I thought.
I would have guessed earlier. I would have guessed mid to late 50s.
That's,
It's younger than me.
maybe they tore something down and built something else there, but I always thought, I wondered, anyway.
I don't know when they stopped using 1x12s in the ceiling boards.
Well, we're just,
I'm over on Treasure Island, and my home was a 58 home, and we had 1x12s in that house. So I know it's kind of a trademark.
all right, well, I do appreciate the presentation. We have nothing to make a decision or a vote on, just to a chance to look at this. I mean, anybody have any comments? I mean, personally, I think it's fine. They're making it look a lot better than it looks now, so, you know, I think it's great. I love the windows on the side. It's very nice.
You offer
nice
your
update.
services to the people next door.
I could,
You don't like the red Pizza Hut roof?
yeah,
It's a landmark.
Throwback to Pizza Hut?
yeah, no. If you just work on the shop and never mind. All right, well, very good. Anybody have any more questions about this?
No.
I'm fine.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much for coming in and sitting through this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can you give us a time frame? Do you have an idea when you're going to start work on that? Just wondering.
I do not. I know the owner has just recently gone out just to make sure that we're keeping within FEMA regulations. He's gone out to get
Right, you got to go through the permit for the seat and everything anyway, right?
Correct. We're going through the appraisal process, and I know we're working on construction drawings now, but we haven't even started permitting yet.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to either Brandon or Kristen here, I guess, on the agenda report for information purposes. Modifications from the June meeting.
We had made I believe we made the changes that the board discussed back in June for divisions 20 and 40. Those were really just largely formatting recommendations that you had made at that meeting. We just included this as an information item to show that we completed it. If you have any questions or anything else to add, we'll be happy to add those in. But otherwise, I know you wanted to talk about scheduling the workshop, so we could.
Right, this kind
move
of
on to that.
segues into that, doesn't it? I think I'm more concerned, or I have a bigger question about meeting with Tara, and is that something that we would have to do? I mean, can we, Matthew, can we as a committee meet with her and just us, or does that have to all be open to the public for something like that?
Individually?
Well, first I was asking as a group. I know individually we don't have to.
As a group, it will be noticed as a public hearing.
Okay,
Doesn't mean people will show up, but it has to be.
okay, and that takes time.
More than one of you meeting together would need to be noticed.
Okay, that's why I assumed, but I just wanted to ask that, because, and I know we don't have her schedule, and we don't, are we still talking about maybe doing something in October for the workshop, or
Well, we were going to push it
talking to, right?
sooner, but I think we have we have an election coming up.
Yes,
So
right.
we're going to wait. But planning board just reviewed this. I mean, I think we're ready to move forward, if I'm not mistaken.
Planning board review, what?
Right?
Our changes?
Not yet? Okay.
Would you like to have Tara attend the next, this is August, the September meeting that we have? And then schedule later in that month the workshop?
Well, when are the elections?
August, in a couple
August
weeks.
20th.
Okay, so then in August. Yes,
I think
Okay.
that's good.
that would be great. Because, you know, we keep, you know, we're slowly doing this, but we're going to have a moment here where we really got to nail every piece down.
September 6th.
So we go to planning board when?
We were going to do a joint workshop with the commission, but we wanted to wait till after the election, so if the people changed.
So this is interesting because it's in the land development code, so the planning board needs to review it. So how do you?
All right,
Yeah, this is a good conversation.
Let me ask a question. As of right now, what do we have set for next month? Any action items that you're aware of?
It's on our agenda. coming up.
We'll have 2 action items.
Well, didn't you ask for a bunch in the beginning?
Yeah, so I just wondered.
So we'll have 7.
No, I just meant from the standpoint that it'd be nice if we were able to do, be more dedicated to one thing.
We could do it as a separate workshop and not part of the meeting like we did before, and start at 1, conclude, and then go to regular.
And you would get notice out for that, and other people would show up if they want, and then we can just sit there and nail it home with Tara. Now, would that be something? Yeah, I think that'd be great. Personally, I think that'd be a great idea.
All right, we'll check her availability.
And then, assuming we can do that, then we would we do the workshop with the planning board and the commissioners? Would that make sense to do it all at one time?
Space for that.
How many people on the planning board?
I think you do the commission as a workshop, and then it goes to planning board before it goes to commission, right?
Maybe we can go to the beach
Right.
theater. No, no, because what I'm saying is, if we're going to have a workshop with the commission so they know what we're doing, we should have something with the planning board so they know what we're doing.
So ideally, whether it's a joint workshop or not, the planning board reviews what you've done prior to you meeting with the commission.
Okay,
And is that
and they get to
scheduled?
do what after they review it?
They're your local planning agency, so they can make recommendations.
No, okay. And do they make
changes.
do they make recommendations to the commission or to us?
No, they make recommendations, which you will see with the commission in a joint workshop.
Well, that,
Okay, I guess I'm probably.
I'm just thinking, what if the commission says, why didn't, they may want direction on what the planning board said, because it's a land development code regulation.
Well, I get that, and that's why I'm wondering whether I don't know what the planning board would specifically do that could affect what we're trying to do. Okay?
It's statutory that they have to review land development, right?
Okay, that's fine, I get that.
I don't know what changes it at all.
Well, what I'm trying to do is not have a delay where we're meeting with the commission to tell them, hey, this is what we want to do, and the planning board is just out there saying, we don't know what this is, we'll
So
start
we
sticking our own
could-
2 cents in.
Hypothetically, it's still in draft form. You could have a joint workshop with the commission, and then once it's final, if you will, it would go through the planning board and then for 2 readings to the commission, which seems like a lot of meetings, but it has to go to the planning board.
Okay,
is it better to?
And maybe Brandon had a suggestion. I don't know if I'm confusing everything.
I was just thinking with the city commission workshop being maybe toward the end of next month, we could potentially put something together with the planning board before then. If would a workshop suffice? We won't have a meeting before then to actually take a vote, but if
Well, we got some CUPs.
So it could be a workshop, but they have to actually make a recommendation.
and it would be the 2 workshops, then to planning board for formal action. That would get it before both the board and the commission to get their input before.
Correct.
all right, I missed that
Or
last part.
if it went to planning board and then we went to workshop with commission, could that count as one of the 2 commission meetings required? No?
Because you can't take action at workshops.
Okay, how about that? Could we have this meeting with Tara where we let's say we come up with a finalized, this is what we're going to do. Show that to the planning board? Does it have to be do they have to have a meeting where they all show up to talk about it? I don't know how the planning board works.
The same as you.
As us, okay. And then after that, once we find out what their recommendations are, if there are any, then we'd have the workshop with the commission, so we'd know what our final thing is. So we'd be educated on, know what the whole story is instead of having it change after that. And how many delays does that cost?
So you're looking at realistically, assuming you have 1 workshop, which, let's just assume you have 2 workshops.
With who? With Tara or with the commission?
With the commission.
Okay.
Let's assume you have 2 workshops.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. You're looking at 5 or 6 public hearings to get this approved.
Okay, I mean, if we have to, we have to do it, but the planning board's a new wrinkle I wasn't aware of. Which,
Well, it's because of the fact that it's in the land.
I'm not arguing the reason
No, no,
for it, I'm just saying,
I'm
yes.
just-
So what I'm saying is I think we would rather know what the planning board recommended before we talk to the commission, that's all I'm saying.
I agree with you. I think having the planning board, having vetted this, asking questions from their perspective before we take it to the commission is important, to have their support.
And also, I assume at the planning board meeting, there'd be a representative from us to talk about what we're trying to do.
Well, let's, for sure,
Yep,
1 o'clock if you're available on September 6th, have Tara here
right,
for our workshop.
yes.
September 6th is a Friday, right?
Sorry.
September 5th.
September 5th.
Okay.
That we can do. We will have to check with planning board. We may or may not have a CUP, and I don't know that we would want to add that to the, that meeting.
So, question: why are we? Do you guys feel like you need to meet with Tara again? Because I thought we were good. I mean, we've met with her twice now. I thought we were good on the language. Just asking.
I think we're good on the language. Do we want to take it any further for that design book? Do we need to talk to her about
Well,
that?
I think the design book, we decided that's something
It's a separate,
we talk about, but we put that,
We don't want to slow this down.
Right.
Okay.
yes.
I was just going to suggest, if you like, we could look at the workshop prior to your next meeting being with the planning board, if that's appropriate. If you don't feel the need to review again with Tara, we're not going to have a planning board meeting this month. We will have a conditional use permit in September, but that'll be at the regular scheduled meeting. So we could look at the September 5th date, 1 p.m. possibly for a workshop. I could reach out to the members
With planning board.
with planning board.
And doing that instead of Tara.
If the board's okay with that, we could check their availability.
Could Tara be there too?
That I was just about.
Yeah.
With the understanding that Tara will probably be there,
Okay, good, yeah, that,
that
all
would be
right.
great.
That's
Yeah,
even
that would be
better.
excellent.
and you work with them, recommendations,
Yeah,
or works out with the commission.
yes.
Then at that point, I'm gonna have to make a determination whether the final version needs to just pass through the planning board, which is very simple to do right before a meeting.
Okay. So before we leave today, Jennifer, you're gonna try to get with, you will get with Tara and we'll know something the next week or so, whether we can do this for next September?
Correct.
Okay. Very good, thank you. So is that it, I believe?
You talked about,
Oh, yeah. Well, I ran my mouth on some stuff, right, yeah.
I added some things. You added
Yes.
commercial and overlay and garbage pickup.
Yeah, so that's
It's
just,
a later date, though.
yeah, the garbage pick, I'm sure we don't have, unless someone can give me an answer right now, what's happening, I would just like to get an update. Doesn't have to be Mike Clark necessarily, if, you know, we can find out. Okay, we talked about the workshop, meeting with Tara. Oh, the other thing was, I guess, Brandon, about talking about the commercial area in Paso Grill and how we might, you know, add some amended standards to that if we wanted to, or just have a discussion whether we wanted to put that into the overlay with amended standards.
Right. So I think we talked about the two options. One would be the special zoning district. One would be the overlay. I think we talked, and it sounded like the discussion was leading toward potentially amending the overlay and then zoning those properties into the overlay. We could handle that the same as the design guidelines. The rezoning is going to take more time than it would take to typically just pass code language. It has to go through a few different boards, and it just takes more time overall. And we have to advertise more for it than code changes.
Right.
So
we'd kind of just table that until we talked about maybe the design guidebook.
I think that would make the most sense, just because it's a more time-consuming process.
Well,
And we
there's an interesting wrinkle. You have to do a business impact estimate now.
for the,
comprehensive plan and rezones that are not applicant initiated, which I don't know if there would be an impact, but
Well, I think, without getting into real detail, because aren't that now, I think, at least from my point of view, I just think that the Pass-a-Grille zoning maps, to eliminate confusion, should all have a /PAG behind it, even if it turns out it's not any different than it is today. You know, so I guess that is being rezoned to some extent, but you know, and then even to try to put, you know, the language that all these zones have, like we're gonna try to add to the CRD, to bring in the historical aspect of it, just to kind of flavor that up. I'm not saying you don't have to do what you have to do, but I don't think we're talking about doing anything of real significance. I don't think we can.
well, that is, it would still be a rezoning even just to include the overlay. And we don't have any comparable zoning standards for the restaurant and the marina in our overlay currently. There's no building type that they could follow, and any commercial property in the overlay has to follow the building type. So we would need to come up with language and building types for that.
That'll be time consuming,
It will.
obviously. Okay. So we can just talk about that at a future date, how we're gonna deal with that. And I think that's it, isn't it?
So I
Anybody
have
else?
one question. With our proposed schedule for workshops and commission review, is there any possibility that this will get done in 2024?
yeah.
Okay.
I just think that what's hard to guesstimate is the amount of comments and changes, and I mean, it'd be done in 3 months if no one had anything else to say. But if we're being asked to, you know, recreate sections and go back with Tara, then obviously that's, and I'm just thinking of the beach ordinance, which I've been working on for 3 years and we haven't gotten approved, so. But I feel good about this, as should you.
Good. All right. I guess that's it. Adjourned. Thank you all.